up, sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, and an amazing day because free agency is here in the NFL, and we got it all here just for you on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. Bottom half of the hour, former NFL corner Ray Mickens, father to RJ Mickens, is going to be joining us here up and on the program. Jets, Chargers, everybody today is getting busy on the phones, and lots of moves that has been currently happening in the state of the league, and I am all for it. So we'll have much more to talk with all of you guys about what's been happening right now up and into the NFL. But I want to start with this. So the Las Vegas Raiders, as of currently, and in the free agent market, has been busy, and they made a humongous trade away. But I'm going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. So first and foremost, Baltimore, for years, I have never known for them to trade away first-round picks. But this one made a lot of sense to everyone in Baltimore's eyes, because this will be the first time in a long time since Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs that the Ravens have a legitimate pass rusher now amongst the defense. So the Ravens went out and reached out to the Las Vegas Raiders, and they've acquired Maxx Crosby, who you already knew was on his way out of Vegas the minute that the dysfunction and not let alone the competition level, it was not going anywhere. And the Raiders are doing a lot of smart things so far. And this is why I have said multitude of times is that if only the Pittsburgh Steelers could have understood this model and this method. But unfortunately, it's not the case. Now, for the Raiders, I feel like now this is probably by far the most exciting that you can get. So with that, Baltimore, new head coach, Jesse Minter, is very familiarized with everyone in the building, and he's a defensive-minded coach. So, of course, being around Jim Harbaugh and a lot of his defenses and Mike McDonald and a bunch of his defenses, understood the plan, understood exactly what the Ravens needed to do. And so, of course, there's a hefty price because, first of all, the Lamar Jackson contract thing, you got to end up making Lamar Jackson happy. And remember, Lamar wins about 75 to 80% of your games every year. This is when injuries are out of the conversation. This is when he has a defense. Like the Baltimore Ravens, their model has always been tough, physical, in the trenches, and they fight every single down tooth and nail until they win the match. I mean, it's a classical like Colosseum fight that you would find in Italy. You would always have the greatest warriors going pound for pound until there's a winner. And that's always what Baltimore's MO and their entire culture has been based around. So now they go trade 2 first-round picks, which I know is a humongous, hefty price for a lot of people. But there's lots of positives that you could take from this. Because Baltimore, this tells me all the excuses are off the table. All of it. You get a pass rusher. He pairs up very well with Roquan Smith. Not to mention the secondaries with Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton, and then the youngster Nate Wiggins. I would argue they would need another corner because you're going to end up solidifying that entire secondary. They were down on injuries. They did not quite look the same. And remember, they ended up getting a Loie Gilman from the Chargers for a Dafe Yahweh. So they got rid of their young edge rusher who is also on the move. We'll be talking a lot about a lot of these free agent moves, and I'll give you my 2 cents on who I think have really splashed it this free agent market in day one. But this is always how it is in every NFL free agency, and it's only going to continue to get better because the first ones is it's an open door. You know what this always feels like too is it feels like I'm shopping on Black Friday every time when the NFL opens up its doors in free agencies. Players, coaches, the entirety of the market, you can make bargain deals, whether signing, re-signing, because you know they fit the schemes in your system, and make trade bargain deals because you've got capital or you're needing some. So every team is involved on the phones and they're all making deals. So what does this mean for the Raiders? Because now they have the number 1 overall pick. They got 2 first-rounders. They got a bunch of other picks, and they've been spending. So the Raiders, as of thus far, they have really accumulated a lot. They've accumulated a lot of picks. They've accumulated capital and money spending in order for them to go out and get the players that they did. So as of recently, they ended up trading away Maxx Crosby. But what that's turned into now, they just recently signed Nakobe Dean to a 3-year deal, Quay Walker to a contract. Then they re-sign Malcolm Kuntz, and they go and get Jalen Naylor, the wide receiver. Like Clint Kubiak is already putting his imprints on everything for the Raiders. And I can't even recall a time in which that the Raiders actually looked interesting for free agency. I mean, you could say what you will about the time of when Devontae Adams got traded from Green Bay to go to the Raiders. We all thought, this may be a wonky fit. I don't know about that. That's what we would have thought. But this feels different. And honestly, if you're a Raider fan out there, you got to be feeling really good about this. And I know many of my family members, good friends, Raider fans out there, they got to be hyped up for this because they go in and get draft capital with a number 1 overall pick, over $110 million to spend. They go and they fix up and clean up the defense because they go and get Taron Johnson on top of that for the secondary on top of Jeremy Chin, who they already have. So they have already inherited multitudes of players, and they're bringing in more. Quay Walker, Kwity Paye. They're acquiring a lot, but this is exactly what happens with teams that for years and years and years, they have been so far down, up and onto the bottom that it was almost comical with how this team had been running their franchise for so long, and it feels like now they are getting competitive. I mean, this is the first time in a long time. So I think with the Raiders, they are improving. They're improving a bunch of their win totals. So now with that being said, the Raiders are going to compete for the AFC West. They may not end up winning that division, which is fine. I mean, you could be okay with that, truthfully, because really what you're trying to do is that you are trying to fix up a system that we know has been pretty much beaten and broken for years. And so after getting this many linebackers, a corner, a wide receiver, this is what Clint Kubiak does. And he comes off of a system in which Mike Macdonald, what he put together in winning a Super Bowl with Seattle, this is who they are. And now you're going and getting this plan to the Raiders. So what a day. What a day that this has to be. So Kwity Paye, Malcolm Kuntz, Quay Walker, and Nakobe Dean. That's a lot of pass rush. But this is what I've been saying, is that you want to make sure that you got the ultimate package to where you have a lot of those capitals. You have a lot of capital on your side. It's a lot of overhead. Because unlike Pittsburgh, who wasn't really ready to trade away TJ Watt, the Raiders were ready to trade up Maxx Crosby. And they did. And on top of that, they turned it into 3 or 4 starting linebackers and edge rushers because you could put them out up and onto the edge and you can make it happen. I mean, this is probably going to end up being a pretty interesting yet ferocious defense up front because you're there to go and acquire pressures. You're there to go and stop the run. And you're there to go and try to get possession back up and on your side and force 3 and outs. That's what this defense looks like as of today with the Raiders. But they are spending really good money and on very good quality players. So they are making a serious case to ensuring we are upgrading the heart of our defense with a lot of these experienced and yet very fitting players on defense. That's what they're doing. I mean, Jalen Nailor, here's the thing, out of Minnesota, very serviceable, can work, and does exactly that. So, lots of moves. We've been busy all day today, and we're continuing to get more and more news as it breaks down, and we're here for you here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. On top of our guest, former NFL corner Ray Mickens is going to be joining us. We're going to talk the Jets because the Jets have definitely made some interesting signings, and there may still be some more moves along the horizon as we go here in the middle of the show. Really appreciate everybody for joining us here today as free agency, that best time of the year, like Black Friday, but it's a whole long week, and we get a lot of big-time signings and moves. Really appreciate everybody for joining us on the show. Well, I'll tell you what. So I ended up finding out that in today's society, the leading cause of death in the United States is lung cancer. Crazy enough, studies have ended up showing that people who have had lung cancer, whether it's by inhalants, whether it's by nicotines and so much more, that it's the leading cause of death in America now. And we are here to change the game and stop all that. Because here in Colorado, they have passed a bill which is prohibiting youngsters, teenagers, from getting a hold of tobacco products and vape products. And so to stop the leading cause of death in the country in lung cancer, we have teamed up with Slapple, nicotine alternative gum, helping to fix a lot of the nicotine cravings that you seem to be craving. From each puff, from each chew, and from each vape, because honestly, vape is not even the best alternative answer, I can tell you that. They have harsh chemicals, no matter the flavors, the artificial chemicals that get into your lungs is why it is the leading cause of death in the country. But with Slapple, you are packed full of 6 different flavors, longer lasting, from lemon, mint, watermelon, peach, and sour apple. Delicious flavors, longer lasting to keep your cravings at ease. Check it out for yourself. Slapple USA, slap your cravings, and try with Slapple.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing deal of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more. SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
What an amazing day on free agency in the NFL. Lots and lots of moves happening, have already happened. Really appreciate everybody for joining us as we are continuing our coverages of the free agency frenzy. So lots of changes have happened. So first and foremost, the markets for certain positions have changed. So Tyler Linderbaum is also one I've forgotten about, the Raiders that ended up signing him, and now he's the highest paid center in the league at $27 million a year. Like, he completely crushed the center market. So guys that got big-time record-breaking deals. Now, you do realize this happens all the time. And it's also when you start looking at the inflation and the recession market. When inflation ends up happening, and especially, and living here in Colorado, there are a lot of different houses, and I keep up on this. My wife and I do, but it's crazy with how much these houses really go up for, because it used to be at a point where they were very affordable, where they're 300, 350K, but now they've skyrocketed up to 600 with that value. And remember, in the NFL, this is also true as well, because players who end up getting the most highest paid, ultimately when they get that bag, good luck in year one. It happens all the time in the NFL. There are injuries that happen, and on the worst parts of the season. Now, we don't wish injury on anybody, but the fact of the matter is that this is what it comes with. It's inevitable. It happens. And I look at it from here that Tyler Linderbaum, is he worth $27 million per year? I don't know. Because to me, he's reset the center market. And if you're looking at it this way, offensive linemen, at least in this free agent market, is very important. It's so important now in today's game. And it's changed up with what a lot of teams are fighting for and what they should be going after. Because if you look at a lot of the top offensive lines in the NFL, many of them, they are not even competing with this market. So the center, actually, the last one, had $18 million a year. Very impressive. And that was Creed Humphrey. Because Kansas City, their winning model, we got our center, we got our vocalist up front in the line. We're not affording to let him go. And at the same time, he's won Super Bowls. And he's really helped out with a great cast of guys like Trey Smith and Josh Simmons. And Kansas City is going to be looking for offensive line as well throughout this market, because we know the right tackle didn't really get fixed up. There was parts of it up and onto the right side I was very scarce of. And now they're at a point where now they ended up getting a running back. So the point of all of this is that whenever you get record-breaking deals, one of two things happen. Does it actually prevail because they are highly talented players, or do they miss in 1 to 2 years And now you got to figure out how you're going to throw away that contract later on. Because think about it. The Carolina Panthers just gave Jalen Phillips a hefty payday. And what it did is that now it influenced other players like Adafe Awe, who just got 4 years, $100 million in Washington. And Washington needs a pass rusher. He's 27 years old, long, strong, and honestly very versatile. Can get after the quarterback. So, and this is all part of a system that really worked out for them, for the Chargers. And once Jesse Minter left, now you got to end up getting more firepower. So I just look at it from this perspective that these high-paid contracts will either work or they become a disappointment. However, depending on fits, depending on schemes, because right now there are a bunch of teams, and I'll list them up a little later on the show, but there are a couple teams that really upgraded. Tennessee, I would make the argument. San Francisco kind of made up some moves, small ones here and there. The Raiders have vastly improved. And then you look at the Giants and what they're doing. And not only that, but even the Chargers, they've made small moves up from here and there, and they're not quite done yet, because here's the funny thing. Day one, this always happens in the NFL. Day one, free agency, everybody's spending money like crazy. But the only ones that we know, the smart ones who honestly end up spending the money, will spend it on what they feel is the right time. So, and a couple of other news that just came out. So Rashid Shaheed, and I totally called this one. So the Seattle Seahawks have now re-signed Rashid Shaheed, 3 years, $51 million, with 34 of it guaranteed. Because the thing with Seattle is they needed their special teamer, and they got him. He's a big play, explosive receiver for Sam Darnold, and they were okay with letting Kenneth Walker walk and now go to Kansas City. So lots of different speculations and different breakdowns. Let's go ahead and break it down here up and on the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
So the biggest news that ended up happening is that the Seattle Seahawks have re-signed Rashid Shaheed, the wide receiver, to a 3-year, $51 million contract with 34.7 of that guaranteed. So the Seahawks, they subtract with Kenneth Walker and have kept and retained Rashid Shaheed. Very important piece when it comes to their special teams, because this is what they wanted and this is what they've needed. So really, really good move by Seattle. Super Bowl champions. It makes sense. It really, really makes sense into this regard. So I think with Seattle, they'll draft a running back. They'll get their guys. But what that does is it's retaining a lot of their top pieces that they already have currently, whether in the offensive line or somewhere else. But this really worked out for the Seattle Seahawks. They keep their special teamer. He's an explosive player, whether he goes for explosive plays or he's up and into the special teams and makes a lot of his big impactful plays there. All right, so it happened earlier, but the Green Bay Packers and the Indianapolis Colts, I don't know what's going on up in Green Bay, but apparently now the Green Bay Packers have traded defensive tackle Colby Wooden to the Colts for Zaire Franklin. So as of right now, the Packers will have Zaire Franklin and Micah Parsons, but as far as stopping the run, I don't even know what they're going to end up doing with as far as that, because they've already gotten rid of Kenny Clark, and they do have a really good defensive tackle I like, but I feel like the Packers have really ended up changing up a lot of their roster. So this is really going to be something else. So now with that, the Colts definitely lost up a bunch of pieces, and we'll get to that. The LA Chargers have been busy amongst their free agency market with after losing Odafe Oweh and Zion Johnson. As Johnson goes to the Browns, Oweh goes to Washington. But what they did is they ended up signing Tyler Biadasz to a 3-year contract. They get their solidified center for 3 years. They also re-signed Khalil Mack to a 1-year, $18 million contract, and they signed fullback Alec Ingold for the first time that they've even had a solidified fullback in quite a while. And then they ended up signing arguably one of the best tight end blockers in Charlie Kolar, 3 years, $24.3 million contract. Highest paid blocking tight end and very much quality-like coming out of Baltimore. And then they re-signed Trevor Penning. So as of right now, the goal for the Chargers is that you are seeing this upgrade from the offensive coordinator that they have. So Zion Johnson, who was one of their athletic offensive linemen, ends up moving on and goes to Cleveland for the X amount of money that was paid. But we know he's athletic, but he wasn't worth a lot of all of that money. So now the Chargers are going to be in the market to going and signing 2 guards now to start, because they got their center, but they're going to need to fix up their guards. And maybe they'll end up signing them, but they'll definitely draft a guard in this year's NFL draft. And most likely that kid out of Penn State. So there's a lot of heat that's boiling up right now for what we may see with the Chargers. But with Alec Ingold, first time in a long time that they've gotten a solidified fullback since Derek Watt. Crazy enough, isn't it? So that means Scott Matlock will be back up and into the defensive front and the defensive tackle. Then re-signing Trevor Penning to keep the depth on their side on the offensive line. Not opposed to the signing, but I do think it helps them out in a big way when you need depth. And then adding in Charlie Kolar for a blocking tight end tells you Oronde Gadsden is their offensive tight end that can go up and does the everyday tight end job. Whereas for this, if you're trying to get a healthy enough run game, this is how you do it. So the Chargers really have upgraded in a bunch of spots, but we'll continue to see with what they do next. Now, interestingly enough, but the Tennessee Titans really have been active in free agency thus far, and alongside with the Raiders cooking on a lot of levels, they have really ended up getting at some big time players and players that really work up to Robert Saleh's system. So the Tennessee Titans, they were busy up today, where the Titans, they go and get a bunch of defensive players. They go and get Mitchell Trubisky as their backup quarterback to really help out with Cam Ward. Very smart. They go and get Daniel Bellinger from the Giants, and they also end up getting center Cade Mays from Carolina. Or no, wrong. My bad on that one. That was actually the Lions. But they get Wan'Dale Robinson as another weapon for Cam Ward. Thank goodness they are getting that. They get John Franklin Myers. They also end up getting Cordell Flott for 3 years. And they go and get another corner in Alontae Taylor from New Orleans. The Tennessee Titans, the one thing that what is really interesting about this is that the money continued to stack. But we also know is that they're spending it on a lot of the best pieces. They're spending it up and on the right pieces. So I think Tennessee really is going to look a lot like a better organization that's going to be competitive. And they really have addressed the best pieces. So they are definitely going to turn around and change around their team, get more wins. And I think when it's all said and done, Tennessee will be the most improved team alongside with the Raiders and a couple others as we break it down here on Free Agency Frenzy down the stretch. I really am excited, and I really am curious about what other moves that we may have left over because this has been a crazy day. It's been a crazy day in the league. I'm all for it. And we still got some more moves along the way. All right, that was your hot press so far.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the hot press.
Here on to the Snake Sports Talk Show as free agency frenzy is ongoing, and we got Ray Mickens around the corner. So the Raiders, the Titans, and not only that, but even the New Orleans Saints kind of cooked up a little bit. So there are some underrated signings, but there also are some of them that do give me a bit of a concern. Because like I said before, the Carolina Panthers signing Jalen Phillips to that massive contract deal, and then later on, Odafe Oweh signs his contract with the Washington Commanders. So what this has done is that, again, every market is always going to be reshaped. This is the state in which the biggest cash cow in America in the NFL continues to pay their guys, and they continue to pay the positions that really will change it up. So Jalen Phillips, 4 years, 120. Odafe Oweh, 4 years, 100. And this is just only the beginning of it. So, but also, I thought about this here today. But there was a couple moves that I thought which was really interesting. So the Colts have let go of Kwity Paye. They have let go of Zaire Franklin. And they've let go of a couple of other defensive players. And remembering this team was a highly efficient tackling team. Because remember, when they had Shaq Leonard, really good linebacker, always accumulated up the tackles, and it just continued to get better from there. And now the Colts, because times have changed, and I couldn't even believe it, but now the Colts have re-signed their wide receiver, Alec Pierce, to 4 years, $114 million, which is now 29 per year, almost near at the 30 million mark. So I don't know what this is going to mean with Chris Ballard, because what I feel is that not only this, but they also traded away Michael Pittman to the Steelers for a late round pick swap. So the Steelers now got their second receiver next to DK Metcalf, which is what they've needed. And they've needed to upgrade their offensive line. So what the Colts have is that they've been really good with their offensive line picks. But as far as offensive weaponry, now you have Alec Pierce and Josh Downs. You've got Tyler Warren and Mo Alley Cox with their tight end situation. So it's a dual tight end type of offense that Shane Steichen now is going to end up running. And I think the Colts, what I feel may happen, they don't even have a first-round pick this year. They're going to have to fight their way to get back into a first round. But I feel their first ever pick is probably going to be receiver. So as you could see, lots of these teams, it's offensive line, it's defensive heavy, and we've only had a couple running backs signed thus far. And there's a good sprinkle of tight ends in the middle of this. That's what this market has shaped up to be. And offensive lines are very valuable to any team in the league. So I think with the Colts, they're standing on their own 2 feet, knowing that Alec Pierce is their guy. Josh Downs, you hope for a healthy season. Jonathan Taylor, star running back, and dual tight ends with now Tyler Warren at the helm. And as far as defensive players, I don't even know. I mean, Latu, and DeForest Buckner and Sauce Gardner are your top 3 players on defense. Where else are you going to end up getting that? You're probably going to end up addressing that more in the draft. And also, too, the other thing that I also want to break down before we go up and on break, and Ray Mickens around the corner, but the 26 compensatory picks. So teams that got compensated a lot of these picks. So first off, there were 4 teams that got third rounders. So Minnesota, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Jacksonville from Detroit got third round picks. And remember, Minnesota, they had a couple players that were up and on their list, and since they signed elsewhere, they got one. Philadelphia, very smart. They get a third rounder. And then you go to the fourths, and here's the other thing. San Francisco got 3 fourth-round compensatory picks for this year. That's valuable assets. Philadelphia gets a fourth rounder. Pittsburgh has a third and a fourth. And then New Orleans, they got a fourth rounder, and the Raiders got a fourth rounder. And then the Jets, surprisingly, they got a fourth rounder themselves. And then you go into the fifth rounds. Baltimore has 2 of them. Raiders have a fifth. Kansas City's got a fifth. Dallas has a fifth. So, and then Philadelphia, here's what's funny. Philadelphia has a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and that's it. Third, fourth, fifth, and a sixth. That's a lot of compensatory picks. You are seeing a lot of these GMs utilizing compensation picks as leverage for a lot of future trades that could potentially happen. Because now, never forget, is that teams right now that are steady and quiet eventually make the loudest noise the next day. So if you're seeing the Raiders, the Titans, and a bunch of teams make big-time noise right now, just you wait until you see the other teams who make much bigger noises afterward. But I think the Saints looks like they've improved. The Falcons, it's an interesting one. So they go and they sign Tua Tagovailoa 1 year, $1.7 million. It's not really, it's not very substantial. But what it does is that it gives them a backup amongst a starter who is also a left-hander and is poised up and in the pocket and could really open up some space. So the Falcons and Kevin Stefanski, and I like Kevin Stefanski, and I trust him. So there's a part in which he wants to reshape up this offense big time. You got to get the best out of Bijan Robinson. You also got to end up getting the best out of Michael Penix because that's your draft pick. Otherwise, that would have been a waste of a draft pick to begin with from what Terry Fontenot left behind. So the Falcons, I'm hoping that they do improve. But remember, too, they've had some guys that have had some issues on the defensive side, and they need to fix that up very quickly. So the Falcons, and honestly, the Bucs, what's crazy about this is the Buccaneers have Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson, and Jalen McMillan. That is their wide receiving room, and then Chris Godwin. So Mike Evans surprised a lot of people. He now goes to San Francisco on a 3-year deal. And I think Jason Light, what he was seeing amongst this is, Mike, this is your last chance getting a contract of which you are happy for. And he did. And time will tell if that contract is really worth it for San Francisco. 3 years, $60 million. So he's getting paid upwards about $20 million a year, which is pretty much, what we look for. But yeah, the days in Tampa Bay for Mike Evans are done. Crazy. We'll get to more of our free agency tracker along with Ray Mickens joining us. We'll be discussing it even further of what's going to be happening and what has happened with the Jets, with the Browns, and what we could also see with the Patriots. So, what a great day. this is only just the start of free agency. So there's lots more moves around the corner to discuss and break down here up and on of the show. Don't go anywhere. Snake Sports Talk Show. Ray Mickens around the corner here in just a moment.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Wild and wacky free agency thus far. Ray Mickens around the corner. So many different signings, so many different moves, and the only teams that thus far has only made one move has been the Baltimore Ravens. So they go and they get Maxx Crosby, and they've been quiet all day long. So not only did they get their star pass rusher, but they've also lost. They've already lost Alexei. They lost Draymond Jones to New England. They've lost multitudes of pieces, even Isaiah Likely going to the Giants, reuniting. And you know what? This is also what happens is when you get a superstar coach like John Harbaugh, for example, is the fact is that all of this, everything that's happening, all the players who have played alongside with this coach are most likely going to be going there. They're going to be going alongside with him. And that's usually what happens. It's like captaining a ship. If people are not fond with the captain, and the captain yet makes the most important and influential moves, they're going to do it. And sometimes this is also where it becomes the split and divide. So Baltimore knows Draymond Jones gone, Adolfo from last year gone, and not only that, but there's even a couple other options that they could utilize. But, of course, that comes with a price on the cap itself. So the Ravens are probably slowly taking their time. They do have pieces, but how crucial will those pieces be if you barely got depth? And that was the problem in which happened to Baltimore. Injuries started happening. They were sustaining so many injuries, and they were no longer the competitive team. They no longer were that. So now it just tells you a lot about what they are and what's going to happen. So again, Roquan Smith you have on a deal, Maxx Crosby you have on a deal, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey. You know Marlon Humphrey's getting up there in an age, and especially too with just his availability. Then there's Nate Wiggins, the youngster. So they're probably going to end up, they're going to have to hit on these draft picks. So that is probably going to be my biggest takeaway. The Houston Texans just recently have signed Reed Blankenship, the safety, to a 3-year contract. So they are continuing to beef up defense for the Texans. Now, the one thing that they've done is they went and got David Montgomery for picks and a player, and they ended up releasing Joe Mixon. So what it sounds like is that the injury suffered by Joe Mixon is worse than people anticipated. So the only thing they were able to do is Ed Ingram, Sheldon Rankins, Dalton Schultz, and then you get David Montgomery. So Joe Mixon now being released saved up $8 million in cap space, and he requested his release, and that was one of the big things. So sometimes it's always a what have you done for me lately league with the NFL. This is how the business works. And yes, it's very, very much feels cutthroat, but you have to understand is that a lot of these injuries, we don't even know what the severity of the injury may look like and feel like. It may end up being excruciating, and it may be a lot worse than what many people had anticipated on paper. So with Joe Mixon gone, they still continue to have a strong run game. And the only thing I know is that the Texans really do have to address offensive line. That's biggest priorities from there because CJ Stroud, he's getting beaten and banged up. They still make it up into the playoffs, and they win a playoff game. So in 3 years straight, he's won a playoff game, but has never gotten out of the divisional round. Eventually he will, but we know that they are a competitive organization, but we know their division is getting tougher. The Jags got tougher from last year winning the division. The Titans now have been active all day today with their free agent spending. So there's lots of moves up and along the horizon, but it's going to come to the teams that are more competent and that are proven and ready to win at this moment, or looking to shape up their cultures in any other way that they can. So, and you also got to think about this because Buffalo's on a time clock. The Packers in this position kind of feel like they're on a time clock. Kansas City, they bring back Travis Kelce and they go and get Kenneth Walker. And let me be honest with you about the Kenneth Walker signing is that it may look really good up and on paper, but watching Kenneth Walker and the amount of value that they ended up getting on the signing makes me feel a little bit skeptical about Kansas City in the move. Because, yes, they do get their everyday back. And they also have Brashard Smith, who they ended up getting up into the draft. It's clear Isaiah Pacheco, like you and I already know, he ain't exactly the solidified number one. Suffered too many injuries, and his speed has cut down a bit. So he's already beaten and battered and banged up. But that doesn't mean that he can't end up contributing in other factors. He really can. But Kansas City, they're even up and on a time clock themselves because they got to get stuff to work. Because Kenneth Walker, you better hope that he's not injured, and you better hope that he's efficient. Travis Kelce in his last year, it's a farewell party. And then not to mention, they're also linked up to San Francisco's offensive tackle, Trent Williams, because they're looking to trade him. So the Chiefs right now know they're up and on a time clock because Denver winning the division last year, the Chargers competitive in 2 years, and who knows what they'll do next in free agency, but they're getting competitive. The Raiders are getting competitive. So this is always what happens in the NFL, is that these teams that sometimes ended up at the bottom at one point don't always sit on the bottom for very long unless you don't have the right personnel in front of you. Then you're stayed there for very long. But for the most part, if you got the right coach, you got the right GM, you're getting the right players, everything will turn itself around. I was thinking about this. So the Cincinnati Bengals, so the AFC North now has Maxx Crosby as the edge rusher, TJ Watt is the edge rusher, and we know Trey Hendrickson is going to be gone from Cincinnati, and then there's Myles Garrett in Cleveland. So you got 3 big-time pass rushers all in the same division. And what this is telling you is, what is the state of the offenses for all of them? Baltimore, luckily, has Lamar Jackson, and Cincinnati has Joe Burrow. But here's the only problem with this. Cincinnati's been needing to fight to get a defense. And so in free agency thus far for Cincinnati, there's a couple players that I would point out. They get Boye Mafe from Seattle. I think it's a very underrated pickup and signing. They also end up getting Brian Cook from Kansas City, another underrated signing. And I think what's happening is that they see the demand with Joe Burrow. And the offensive line eventually will shape up and will get better, but the defense was so doggone atrocious. Like I wouldn't even know what to make of it. And that was what was one of the biggest issues. So Cincinnati wants to be competitive in their division, but it's hard to do so when you have a GM and it really does make you think that it really does make you think that the Bengals are just going to continue to be the Bengals, not addressing defense, not helping out their star quarterback. And even though that, because what Joe Burrow had been harping about for so long has been, we've got the weapons. We've got now Chase Brown, who we know is going to continue to build up on his own. And then what do you do about this defense? Because Trey Hendrickson looks like a one-trick pony, and it's hard to really follow up with it. So I think Cincinnati, they made the best decisions by going and getting an edge rusher because they're not holding on to Trey Hendrickson for very long. And the way that they kind of went about with it really wasn't the best. The other thing was Shamar Stewart. You better hope that he's on the best level. Because unfortunately, that's not looking any promising either. And the last thing that they want is they want that pick to be a bust. So, and they've got to shape up the secondary, and they've already let go of Logan Wilson at one point to Dallas, but Cincinnati's going to need more firepower up and in that for defense if they really want to end up competing with it, because Pittsburgh, we don't even know who their quarterback is yet. And then Cleveland, I feel like they're going to put their chips in on Sanders and hope that it works out just fine. All right, so the Jets have been busy up and onto their free agent market as free agent frenzy continues on. And to join us, former corner Ray Mickens joins us on the program. When you think of free agent frenzy, Ray, lots and lots of moves were just, this happens every time. I equate to this being like Black Friday every year. Everybody's storming the stores. Everybody's going and getting the hottest deals. But of course, there are the smart front office guys who handle well with their money, where they're putting it in the places and positions they know that they need to. So my biggest thing is Maxx Crosby to Baltimore. I think they got themselves a great edge rusher who's now paired with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett in the same division. However, the Raiders went out, got picks, they got more comp picks, and they go and they spend the money on different deals. So when you think about this, I think this felt a lot like a big trade-off on both sides, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the offseason, to upgrade your rosters is a complex formula. So it's just not simple as, spending the right money on the right guys. It's all about who's coming out in the draft, who are generational players that are coming out in the draft, I would say. Number one, that can affect the game right away. And then, you got savvy veterans that you don't necessarily have to pick up right now. You can wait because you got OTAs, you got the draft mini camps, you got that's time for young players, unproven players. Coaches can work with them. The older players, they know what they can do. They just need to be healthy if we need you in training camp. If these guys don't work out over the course of the last 6 months. So this is an ongoing process and for every team, every organization. And you won't really know what you have until I would say maybe 2 weeks into training camp, or I'm sorry, two preseason games in.
Yeah, and it gets you a chance to see what they plug into to a scheme fit and how that shows out up and onto the field. So I think of it this way is, so after the Raiders getting rid of Maxx Crosby, and it felt a lot like Baltimore was putting their chips in because Lamar Jackson's winning you 75 to 80% of your games. You got now him paired up. I feel like this is equivalent to Green Bay because they had Quay Walker and Micah Parsons, and then also with Rashawn Gary. So now you have Roquan Smith. You've got Max there on both those edges, and then with Justin Madubuike if he comes up healthy, and then with the stars of Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton. Whereas for the Raiders, though, they got more of their capital back, and there's the question about the number 1 overall pick. Do they really go with quarterback, or do they maybe shock some people with that pick? Because you got to think, they go and sign Tyler Linderbaum, completely crush the center market at $27 million now a year, and then they go and get quality linebackers, Kwity Paye, Quay Walker, and then they go and get a couple of other pieces. I think the Raiders, and this happens to a lot of teams, because I made this point, teams that usually end up last in their divisions, depending on their the front offices and their coaches. If you get the best ones, you're not going to sit there in the bottom for very long. And I feel like the Raiders are making a serious point that Clint Kubiak, I got a Super Bowl. I've also got John Spidek, a very young, smart GM. They're going to be cooking up, and I think we're going to see that by the win totals this year.
Yeah, no question about it. I think anytime you need a quarterback, I would say, and this is just me personally, I wouldn't reach for one in the draft. I would say you get a transformational guy, you get a generational guy, but if that person is not there, I'm going to get another generational player in a different position. The Brock Bowers of the world or the Saquon Barkleys of the world, you spend that pick on them. This year, I think the kid out of Indiana is a difference maker. I really do. I think, if I'm a general manager and me personally, I'm a defensive guy. So, I care about defense first. I think defense wins championships. However, I do think that this kid can be he's a natural leader. I could just tell just by listening to him and watching him play, he's a natural leader. He's done a lot without the 5 stars. So anytime you get a quarterback and you got all these 5 stars around him, like most Alabama quarterbacks, right? It's hard to evaluate him, but it's kind of easy to evaluate this guy. He's pretty good. So it'd be tough for me to pass up on him if I have the number 1 pick. But any other year, I would have traded down and got the best players.
Speaking of defenses, because a former team you played for in the New York Jets, and you actually played alongside with them, Aaron Glenn, looks like his side of the ball up on defense is starting to get piled up. They get Minkah Fitzpatrick. They get a couple of other players. Now, granted, they let the Williams brothers go, Quincy and Quinnen, but I feel like with the Jets, and this is kind of just the thing, is your blueprint will always show on what side of the field that you're on, offensive or defensive minded. So with Aaron Glenn, he wants to go up and on defense. He wants to get the pass rushers because Josh Allen is a generational talent and sitting in that division for twice a year. You got Miami now with Malik Willis, and they're starting to kind of change some things up with Jeff Hafley. And then the Patriots have just been to a Super Bowl. So the Jets right now are trying to instill immense amount of pressure against these teams in their division, but they're also trying to compete up with other teams in the AFC who have their star quarterbacks or have yet to get their star quarterbacks. But they want to be able to turn the table and change that. And now the only question is with their quarterback spot, because Garrett Wilson, you got to feed him up the ball. I like the fact they have Mason Taylor as the tight end and Breece Hall, who they franchise tag. What do you kind of see in this outlook, and knowing from your former teammate what the plan he may have in place of what we may see with the Jets this new year?
Well, first of all, man, love Aaron Glenn to death. He's like a brother to me. We played at Texas A&M together for a few years there, and then the NFL we played together for years there. And so one thing that I know about him, he's going to focus on defense this year. I think he's got to bring it on defense this year. Yep. Period. There's no question about it. And we all know, and I can say we all know, but a lot of people know that pass rush is important to any secondary. You saw what happened in Dallas last year, right? So
yep.
People are like, yeah, Micah Parsons. Okay, well, Micah Parsons made Trayvon Diggs and all those other defensive backs. And then when they didn't have Micah Parsons, you saw what happened. So I think, first of all, you got to have that pass rush, and then the secondary is going to look very good. But we got to play, and I say we as the Jets, we just got to play really. We got to have a top 10 defense, hands down, next year. I don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like. I don't know who we're going to get. Hopefully, we pick up a veteran to hold the ship, and focus on drafting linemen. Offense and defensive linemen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you address up with the defensive front and get more pressures up front, and then even with the offense, because I really loved what the Jets were able to do in the last couple of years, where they got Armand Membo and then they get Alofa Shanu. I really like both of those quality offensive linemen. Elijah Vera Tucker now has hit the market, so who knows what may happen there. But if they can readdress that and keep the offensive line steady, then at least the run game, the defensive physical play, like that all will really be the recipe of success that'll up your win totals. So a lot of positions really shape up the market, and this is what happens. I think it's a comparison into inflation and recession in a sense, because sometimes players like Tyler Linderbaum just cracked the code on the center market. And then not only that, you now have Trent McDuffie, who the Rams went all in on because they know this is the last year they're going to have with Matt Stafford. So you got Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, you got Trent McDuffie. They went up and on corners because they knew that was hurting them a bit. But also, I would make the argument special teams was also another thing they could not afford to keep like what they did last year, because eventually it was going to come back up to them. So with that, do we feel as though the Rams, and they did it smart with them in Kansas City, but is this now where the Rams are really putting their chips in? Because I'd hate to see some teams that when they do this and then all of a sudden they fall short, that becomes a very costly price to pay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're putting all the chips in, and I love it. I mean, you got to respect them for doing that. And you know what? Injuries are part of the game. We don't know how that's going to unfold. I mean, but the fact is that they want to win, and they want to win now. And there's certain organizations that feel that way, and I respect that from those organizations that go all in and that try to get it done. So the Rams think they got a chance this year. I love to see it. I can't wait to see what they look like, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I think the Rams continuing to be competitive, and I think with Matt Stafford, because eventually they're going to have to figure out that quarterback spot for the future. And
yeah, that's true. That's true. But I
And
mean,
Sean,
but you can't. I mean, in the NFL, and I know we talk about future, but you really can't. It's a win now league.
yeah,
You gotta stack your chips to win this year. If you're thinking about the future may never come. I'm just gonna tell you, the NFL. There's a 3-year cycle
yep,
on a roster, a 3-year cycle. So if you're talking about future, you just I don't know how far in the future you're talking about, but
yeah,
yeah, it's a win now league. You have these teams like, say, the Indianapolis Colts last year. Take, for instance, Indy.
yep.
I mean, out of nowhere, they have the chemistry out of this world.
Mhm.
Daniel Jones looks like I don't know who, and you have this chemistry that no one really saw the previous year. So
Yeah,
it's like, all right, okay. So it can be done anywhere. It
100%.
it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, they already had a star in Jonathan Taylor, and watching him be healthy and running the football, like that's the best we've even seen Jonathan Taylor, and still not even close to yet of the best we've seen yet.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah,
mean, take another example is Sam Darnold.
yep,
My
yeah,
Jets had him, and you saw how he looked in New York, right? And
yep,
so, and then now he has a Lombardi Trophy in his living room. So it's like, all right, the chemistry was working great there. It was working great. It just didn't work in New York. New York is built differently than Seattle. Just being honest. The TV, the market, everything is just different. It's a different type
yeah,
of player in New York that you need in New York.
yep, 100%. And for the Jets, I mean, it's been quite a long time since they've even legitimately figured out the quarterback spot, and so hopefully they can figure that out. And the guy that's going to be throwing it, he's going to have a lot of weapons. He's going to have a very good run game. He's going to have a very strong offensive line, and pair that up with a strong defense right there next to him. Anything could happen.
But
So
he's got to have two things though. He's got to have two things. He's got to have tough skin,
yep,
alligator skin,
yeah,
and he's got to be mobile right now.
absolutely, yeah. In today's game, you got to be able to move and you got to create space. So I will tell you, as a first time father, firstborn, 7 weeks old already. You have your son who's currently up and in the league with the LA Chargers and Jim Harbaugh with RJ. I love his stuff. I think he really pairs up well. And to have Derwin James right there next to him, his mentor, and just being there to compliment. So I think when I saw that move with Alohi Gilman to go to Baltimore, it was opening up much more time for him to get more snaps, get more gelled up with the defense. When you started to see this with this defense that the Chargers really do have, now they bring back Khalil Mack, they let Odafe Owe go to Washington for over $100 million for 4 years, but Jim Harbaugh, classic, in the trenches, physical, everywhere he's been, San Francisco, Michigan. The game plan is that I hope that they get their edge rusher that they know they will need in this rotation because Thule's been very good, and they hope they keep this rolling in the defensive front to stop the run. But I think with that secondary, Ray, man, that secondary is really tough for any offenses and for any quarterback to try to penetrate, and especially when you look at that red zone with the 4-2-5s. What do you make of this team? Because I don't think they're quite done yet. I think day 2, there's some surprises that are going to be coming in.
Well, first off, to your first comment about my son playing in the NFL, it has been a blessing. Just coaching him from youth football all the way up into seeing him play. Couldn't have landed in a better spot. With Coach Harbaugh, it reminds me. I hate to compare coaches, but it reminds me a little bit of Parcells in a way. And I used to love those tough coaches, and I know my son loves tough coaching as well. So I think it was a perfect fit for him, scheme wise. And philosophy wise, first Harbaugh, the philosophy that he has is just it's a championship atmosphere. He's won championships. It's a championship atmosphere, no question about it. The defensive scheme has been a great scheme. I watched it, I watched every game last year. And to your point, that rush, once they get this pass rusher, they need to get a pass rusher. in there to complement Tui and Khalil. But that defense has been awesome, and it's really the scheme and the players in the scheme that make it successful. You know, I know my son is very smart. That's one of his top traits is being able to listen to a coordinator, take that whole defense and know that defense like he's been playing it for 3 or 4 years already. I knew he would come in and be prepared. And now it was just all about making plays, and they put him in the right positions to make plays this year. So it's been great to watch them.
Absolutely. And even from post the move of Aloy Gilman to Baltimore, I feel like year 2, I feel he's going to be an exciting year where he's definitely going to go off with this defense.
He is, and and it's a blessing that he does have Derwin James. I told him that he needs to stay around him this offseason as much as he can. Make sure you bug him to death, man. Work out with him, try to be with him everywhere, and that'll rub off on him because Derwin James is a class act guy. He's a Pro Bowl player, future Hall of Famer if he keeps up doing what he's doing. So I would love. I would. There is no other better situation for RJ than being with Derwin in that secondary.
Absolutely, man. What a fun show it is to watch, and just to feel like the proud dad to coaching him up and into Pee Wee and all the way up and into the league, and then having the best mentors up and around there. That's the best advice right up from there. Keep up with the guys who's done it and the guys that know, like, hey, I'll show you exactly all the techniques, man. It'd be awesome. So appreciate you for coming on by here, Ray. Take care of yourself. What a day in day 1. And we ain't even finished with this yet. We'll see what day 2 we got coming up tomorrow. Take care of yourself, my friend.
All right. See you, bro. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a crazy free agency, and it's only going to get crazier up from here. We're all about it. Snake Sports Talk Show. You know where to find us. Your go-to show for free agency. Appreciate everybody for joining us here up and onto the program. Take care of yourselves. Wednesday, a stacked show for us because we've got a lot more former NFL players. It's going to be talking about also the Raiders' historic splash move with the money that they've had in the moves. Also, former NHL defenseman Alexei Semenov. We're going to be talking about the Olympics, the USA hockey team, and then, of course, what the state will happen now with the Russian national team and with Alex Ovechkin, and so many others up and across. Can't wait. Really, really appreciate everybody for joining us. Appreciate Ray Mickens for being here up and onto the show with us today. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and we'll see you next time on the Snake Sports Talk Show.